I've had quite a few requests recently to show how I record my music, mainly my black metal stuff. So I've made myself a cup of tea and let's get on with it. So I plugged my guitar directly into the interface, which is a Focusrite Scarlett 2i2. Then I open up Reaper and I turn ripple editing off. Then I add my tracks, and I will normally add guitar tracks first. I add my effects chain, which normally involves the Grindstein plugin, and then I would simply duplicate those tracks and I've got my guitars ready. Then I will add colour. Often, I don't do this every time, but sometimes I will colour code the tracks so that all the instruments that are the same colour. And then I name them. Then I normally have the bass and the vocals and the drums. And normally I use Cult Drums 2, and I'll put a link to where you can find those in the description. And then again, I frequently will colour code the tracks. Again, I don't do this all the time, but if I'm doing a serious project like an album, then I will do. Decisions, eh? So once I've done that, I mean, this is just an example, so instead of creating my own drum patterns, I'm just going to grab some MIDI drums and chuck them in. And I always add a lot more drums in than I need, because it's quite annoying when you're playing and then halfway through the drums stop. So I always make sure I've got plenty of drums in. Then I will save the project so that if it crashes halfway through, I've got a saved version of it. And also I make sure I save it frequently throughout recording. Then I set the metronome levels and record some unholy black metal. So this is the sound I'm using for bass, which is Bias FX 2 by Positive Grid, and I'm just picking a preset and using that. I might come back and tweak it later, but just to record I'm using a basic preset. And for the vocals I also use an effects chain. I'm going to pause it here because I actually took this chain out completely and replaced everything with this, which as you can see is just a little bit of EQ and a little bit of reverb, and I just added a little bit of top end on the EQ, and that's pretty much it. Then I do a bit of what I call tidying up, where I go through the tracks that aren't solidly recorded all the way through, and I take out the empty space just so that it doesn't pick up any microphone noise or background sounds or people coming in the back door and shutting the door and all those lovely things that happen when you are recording. So I just trim all those down, and then I play back, have a listen, and I will then reduce the volume of each of the tracks so that the master track isn't peaking, and I'll mix everything in. And once I'm happy with the mix, that's when I will add the final touch, which is either a little bit more EQ on the overall track, on individual tracks, and also increase the loudness. And this is what I use to increase the loudness, which is the Loudmax 64-bit VST plugin by Thomas Munt. It basically acts as a compressor but also increases loudness. So I take the peak down to 0.5 so that it never goes above there, and then I adjust the volume until the bar on the right starts to get towards 3 and 4 when it's peaking, which massively increases the volume, and I'll show you what it sounds like without that in a second, so you can hear the difference between using that particular plugin and not using it. Then I will normally put the whole thing on a loop and just play it and listen to it, and then adjust things as I go. So when I started, I didn't have any EQ in these guitars and they were sounding a little bit dull, so I decided to add a little bit more top end into the guitars, and that's basically what I did, and did the same thing on each of them to give each of them a little bit more brightness. And I also took out around the 400 Hz EQ as well, because that's a nasty frequency. Then I went into the bass track and it was a bit boomy, so I took out some of the bass, and then I was a lot happier with it. Added a little bit of reverb on the drums, which just made them sound a little bit nicer. And then I bounced the track down by selecting the range, and as you'll see, the volume in the bounce down is really consistent and high, but there's no peaking, no red marks along that wave. And that's pretty much it really. Then I finish my tea and stick it on YouTube for you guys to listen to, and that's it. So hope you enjoyed that video. I'll see you later.